Sir, this isn't a soup kitchen. The maitre d's words dropped like glass on tile, slicing through the low hum of conversation inside Belle Lumiere. His voice wasn't loud, but loud enough. Just enough for the tables near the front to catch every syllable. Then he did it. He held the sleek black card Cameron had just handed him, heavy, matte, embossed with a silver Ethics Hub seal, and flicked it straight into the brass bin under the podium, like it was trash. Across the lobby, forks paused mid-air. A wine glass clinked just a little too loud against its stem. Cameron stood still, calm, watching. But next to him, his 7-year-old daughter, Talia, clutched his fingers tighter. "Why did he do that, Daddy?" she asked, barely above a whisper. The maitre d' didn't blink. "We get people like this sometimes," he said, now addressing the couple in line behind them. "Dress up, walk in like they belong. Always some fake card or story." He glanced at Talia's white sneakers, her pink cotton dress, her neat braid. "Cute trick," he added, "but we don't fall for it here. Tell us where you're watching from. And if this ever happened to someone you know, drop it in the comments. This next part, it's going to stay with you." Cameron didn't move, didn't say a word. He bent down slowly, retrieved the card from the bin, and wiped it gently with his thumb. Behind the maitre d', a young server stiffened. She looked barely out of college. Auburn hair tied back in a loose bun. Her name tag read Emma. She opened her mouth to say something, then stopped. She'd seen this script before. Cameron straightened, brushed imaginary lint off his sleeve, and offered the card again, without a word. The maitre d' scoffed, waved him off. Security can help you find the right place. And that's when the manager arrived. Tall, blonde, lipstick too perfect, high heels clicking against marble. "What's the problem?" she asked without looking at Cameron. "He's not on the list," the maitre d' said. Tried to pass off a printed black tier card. The manager finally looked at Cameron, then at Talia, and there it was, that sharp flick of the eyes, that calculation. Cameron knew it well. He'd seen it in boardrooms, on stages, in polite meetings where people smiled with their mouths but not their eyes. "Sir," she said, syrup thick, "this is a private dining space. We don't allow last-minute walk-ins, especially not—" She hesitated, just a beat. "Unsupervised guests." Talia looked up at her father. "What does that mean?" Cameron crouched beside her. "It means they don't see us," he whispered. The manager crossed her arms. "I'll have to ask you to leave before this escalates." A few guests murmured. From the corner, Emma finally stepped forward. I think that card is real," she said. "I've seen it before. It's Ethics Hub Tier 1+. Only a handful of people even—" "Interns don't speak to management," the manager snapped. "Go polish something." Emma froze, red in the face, but she didn't move. Cameron stood tall again, calm as ice. He pulled out his phone and tapped a single message to his assistant, Raina. "Soft sync. Prepare whiteout protocol." He didn't look rushed. He didn't raise his voice. He simply slid the phone back into his pocket. A man seated by the window had been watching the whole time. Salt and pepper hair. Navy blazer. He leaned to his wife and whispered, "Isn't that the guy from the cover of Tech Index?" The manager had already turned toward her radio. "Security to front. Code 13B. Emma's eyes widened. That code wasn't just for unruly guests. Code 13B was Belle Lumiere's internal term for remove without cause. It was unofficial, quiet, but it meant one thing. If they don't look like they belong, get them out before they make it uncomfortable. The man in the vest arrived in seconds. Broad shoulders, muffled earpiece. "Sir, we need you to exit the property," he said, eyes flicking to the radio. "Now!" Talia pressed closer to her father, voice cracking. "Daddy, are they going to take you away?" Cameron looked down at her. "No, baby girl. They just don't know who we are yet." The maitre d' chuckled. "Everyone thinks there's somebody." The manager added, "Sir, you're escalating." That's when it shifted. From the back, a man raised his phone and muttered, "That is Cameron Rhodes." Another voice. "Wait, Ethics Hub?" Suddenly, silence. Even the security guard blinked, his jaw tightened. The manager's expression faltered. Cameron finally spoke. His voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. "You just flagged the man who built the system this restaurant depends on." He turned slightly. "You're being rated as we speak." The maitre d' looked at the card still in Cameron's hand, the silver-embossed logo. His throat bobbed. Emma's tray clattered onto the podium. The man by the window pulled out his phone. "He's the one who designed Whiteout Protocol." The manager paled. I didn't know." "You didn't care," Cameron said. "That's worse." Then he turned to Talia. "You ready to eat?" he asked her gently. She nodded. "But are we still allowed?" He smiled. "They don't get to decide that." Across the country, Raina's phone pinged. A line of code appeared across her dashboard. "Override. Rhodes ID confirmed. Executing ethics lockdown protocol. Syncing 152 locations." Within seconds, Belle Lumiere's entire national profile went red. And no one inside the restaurant even knew yet. But they were already frozen. The manager was already backpedaling. I didn't realize who you were," she stammered. "Had I known—" Cameron didn't even look at her. His eyes were on Talia. She was no longer crying, but she was still holding his hand like she thought the ground might disappear beneath her. Emma stood by the host podium, frozen, her cheeks flushed with a mix of fear, guilt, and some strange kind of relief. She had spoken up, just enough to not feel like a bystander, but not enough to feel safe. The maitre d', however, still didn't move. He just stood there, arms folded, lips tight, staring at Cameron like he was still trying to convince himself this wasn't happening. He mumbled, "He doesn't look like someone who owns anything." Another quiet guest, 2 tables back, whispered, "Did he just say that out loud?" And then the security guard, vest still zipped up to his chin, stepped forward again. "I'm gonna need to confirm this," he said to no one in particular, pulling out a small tablet from his pocket. Cameron raised a brow. "You want confirmation?" The guard tapped a few buttons, pulled up a browser, and typed in, "Ethics Hub Founder." The result popped up instantly. A press photo, sharp suit, slate backdrop. Cameron Rhodes, CEO, Ethics Hub Systems. The guard blinked, then looked up at Cameron, then at Talia. His mouth opened, closed. "You should have Googled before you grabbed my arm," Cameron said flatly. Talia leaned into his side. "He was going to touch you?" "I know, baby," Cameron said, rubbing her shoulder. But he didn't. That's when the first ping came. The maitre d's tablet buzzed, followed by the manager's, then the security guard's phone. A blinking red alert. Belle Lumiere location flagged as non-compliant. The manager looked down. No, this can't be happening." Cameron's voice stayed level. "You've been operating under the Ethics Hub umbrella for the past 4 years. You signed the charter. You used the seal on your website. You bragged about your A rating." He stepped forward, just one slow, measured pace. "But when the person who built the system walked into your house with his child, you threw away his name, his credentials, and his dignity." The maitre d' turned pale. "It was just... Look, I didn't know." "You assumed," Cameron cut in. "And that assumption is why this protocol exists." Emma finally moved. She walked up beside Cameron, slowly, cautiously, and said quietly, "Sir, they've done this before, to other families. I've seen it." He looked at her. "How long?" Emma swallowed. "Since I started. 2 months ago. They don't always say it out loud, but when someone doesn't fit the look, they get flagged, stalled, or seated in the back." Talia tilted her head. "What's fit the look?" Emma blinked. I don't even know anymore." In that moment, a woman in a green silk dress stood up from her table. "I'm sorry, but I'm not comfortable eating here anymore." She turned to her husband. "Let's go." Another couple followed. The maitre d' tried to stop them. "Your food is coming out. We'll eat somewhere human," the man replied. Then came the waiter from the wine bar. He walked over, apron still on, looked at Cameron, then at the manager, and said, "I'm done here." "You're quitting?" she gasped. He shrugged. "I didn't sign up to work in a place that embarrasses little girls." He dropped his apron and walked out the front door. Back at the host podium, Emma's tablet buzzed again. She checked the screen. Her mouth dropped.
Sir, Ijimi ici,
she said. We just got removed from the entire National Ethics Index. It says we've been flagged as Tier 0. Cameron nodded once. That's what happens when whiteout activates. Your points freeze, your perks vanish, and your investors? They'll be calling within the hour. The manager was shaking now. You can't just destroy us like this. Cameron's voice was cool. I didn't destroy you. You did that the moment you looked at my daughter and decided we didn't belong. At the bar, the man with the navy blazer was still watching. He turned to the young server beside him and said, "This is bigger than a bad check-in. This is going to hit the industry." His words weren't wrong. Back in Palo Alto, Reyna was already receiving calls. 6 regional operators, 2 corporate hotel chains, 3 investors, all asking the same thing. Did Rhodes really just shut down 152 locations? Reyna didn't flinch. She simply replied, "Not shut down. They shut themselves down." He just finally held up a mirror. Back in Newport, the restaurant lobby was half empty now. Only a few stunned guests remained. One older woman walked up to Cameron slowly, hair silver, wrists stacked with bangles. She reached out and placed a warm hand on his shoulder. "I've dined in this city for 40 years, she said. "But this was justice." She looked down at Talia. "And you, young lady, were very brave." Talia smiled, just a little. Her first real smile since stepping inside. Emma whispered to Cameron, "You don't have to stay, but if you ever want this space, it should have been yours all along." He looked around, the polished marble, the chandeliers, the quiet hum of silence where arrogance used to live. Then he said softly, "I don't need this space." He knelt beside his daughter. "I just need you to feel safe, every time, anywhere." She nodded, and for the first time that day, her grip on his hand loosened. It started with the phones, not just 1 or 2. All of them. The maitre d's tablet blinked, then froze. The manager's phone buzzed. A junior sommelier in the back hallway stared at his watch screen as notifications started rolling in faster than he could clear them. Then came the calls, not guests, investors. Why are we flagged on Ethics Hub? What happened to our rating? Why are we trending under #Frozen152? Inside the dining room, Cameron and Talia were still standing near the host podium. The tension had shifted. It wasn't rage anymore. It was collapse. The power structure, the smugness, the superiority, the smug hierarchy of who gets treated like royalty and who gets tossed out, was now visibly unraveling. One of the assistant managers, a guy in a black vest with a Bluetooth earpiece, walked quickly to the front, eyes wide. "We have a problem," he whispered to the manager. She didn't even look at him. "I know. No, I mean, big problem," he insisted. "Our supplier contracts, Cisco, Regal Vintners, even Zenith Floral, they just froze all standing orders." The maitre d' turned from the terminal. "That doesn't make sense. Those are automated." "Were," the assistant corrected. "Until this morning." Emma, still standing by Cameron's side, held up her own phone. Her fingers trembled slightly. "Sir, we're not just trending. There are videos. Yours. Talia's face. The card being tossed. It's everywhere." She turned the screen so he could see. There it was. They threw out the founder of the ethics system they brag about. Over 230,000 views in under 20 minutes. Another video had a sharper title. "Little Black Girl Denied Entry at Fine Dining Spot." Dad's response? Devastating. Talia leaned in. "That's me." Cameron smiled gently. "You did nothing wrong." Emma's eyes welled. She didn't even speak. They looked at her like she didn't matter. Cameron's voice stayed low, calm, but unmistakable. "She matters. You all just forgot that people who look like her belong here too." In the far corner, a guest, mid-30s, hipsterish, holding a camera bag, stood and raised his hand. "Sorry to interrupt," he said loudly, "but I'm a food culture blogger. You might want to know I just posted the whole thing, 10 clips, and I tagged every major hospitality brand connected to Belle Lumiere." Cameron turned slightly. "Thank you." "No," the man replied. Thank you. I didn't think I'd see it with my own eyes. Across the room, the manager's voice cut across the tension like a whip. This has gone far enough. Everyone needs to calm down. She turned to the staff, trying to retake control. Phones away. Get back to your sections. Stop talking to him. But no one moved. Not Emma, not the assistant manager, not even the bartender, who had quietly started removing the bottles from the showcase fridge, as if he already knew what was coming. That's when the district manager called. The maitre d' held the phone away from his ear as a harsh voice barked through. Cameron heard one phrase crystal clear. Is this really happening on the day we filed for ESG-backed credit? He turned to Emma. They just exposed themselves. She looked confused. How? Because when people start panicking about optics, Cameron said, it means they were always managing appearances, not people. Meanwhile, Raina sat in her high-rise office on the West Coast, eyes moving quickly across a 3-monitor setup. Her voice was cool, clipped, efficient as she coordinated the next wave. We've activated Ethics Hub visibility on all Belle Lumiere locations, all Tier 3 and below now visible to public interface. 4 partner investment groups notified. On her other screen, a message came in. Subject, joint statement requested by press. AP, Axios, New York Times. She opened a live call line with Cameron and asked one question. You want to speak now or wait? Cameron didn't answer right away. He looked down at Talia, who was sitting now on the leather bench by the wall, sipping a small glass of water someone had brought her. Then he replied, wait until she's safe. Then we speak. Back inside the restaurant, the guests were now a mix of silent and leaving. Some still watched, unsure whether this was real life or some scripted moment of karmic justice. A woman in a business suit turned to her friend and whispered, I've eaten here 3 times this month. I think I've seen this happen before. The friend nodded slowly. I just never thought to say anything. Another guest, a teenage boy with earbuds hanging loose, walked past Cameron on the way out and said, that was hard to watch. You're, way too calm. Cameron smiled faintly. Calm is how systems change. At that moment, a trembling voice cut through the room. It was the bartender. He stepped out from behind the counter, took off his apron, and said, I can't work here anymore. The manager spun toward him. You're seriously quitting right now? He nodded. I'm not losing sleep over a paycheck that comes from treating people like they're less. Then he looked at Talia and added, You deserve better. He walked out. No one stopped him. Cameron looked to Emma. How long have you wanted to say something? Emma swallowed hard. Since my 2nd week. I stayed quiet because I needed the hours for school. He nodded. Understandable, but remember this, silence always sides with the system. Emma's eyes filled again. I know. I won't stay quiet anymore. He reached into his wallet and handed her a small card, different from the Ethics Hub one. It read, Rhodes Protocol, Witness Team, Field Candidate. Emma blinked. What is this? A chance, Cameron said, to help make sure this doesn't happen again. Just then, the front doors opened. A woman in a sharp suit, clipboard in hand, walked in with 2 associates in tow. The manager turned. Who are you? The woman flipped her ID. Nina Graves, Compliance Division, Rhodes Protocol Oversight. This location has been flagged. We're here to initiate review and public record audit. The color drained from the manager's face. The maitre d' backed away. Cameron gave a polite nod as Nina walked past. She stopped and glanced down at Talia. Hi, sweetheart, she said warmly. We've got this now. Talia looked up. Thank you. For a moment, the entire restaurant was frozen. No clinking glasses, no footsteps, no voices. Just the sound of one clipboard flipping open. Nina Graves, field officer for the Rhodes Protocol Oversight Division, stood calm and composed in the center of the lobby. Her gray pantsuit was perfectly pressed. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Per Ethics Code EHUB 9-3, she began. This location has been flagged non-compliant at Tier 0. She paused. You are now under full ethical review. This location is no longer eligible to receive public or private funding tied to the Ethics Hub system. The manager's face went white. Wait, she stuttered. You can't just walk in and shut us down. Nina glanced at her. then at the clipboard again. "I didn't shut you down," she replied. "Your behavior did. I'm just here to document it." Cameron said nothing. He stood beside Talia, who had moved closer again when Nina walked in. Not from fear, just instinct. But this time, there was no tremble in her hands. She was watching, learning. The maitre d', for once, had nothing to say. Emma, still at Cameron's side, held her phone tight but wasn't filming anymore. She didn't need to. The world was already watching. Nina continued her briefing without breaking stride. "Effective immediately, all ratings for Belle Lumiere will be pulled from the public portal. You are prohibited from using the Ethics Hub seal on any media, signage, or digital property." The manager tried again. "This can't be legal. We've been a 5-star property for years. We have a 4.8 on guest platforms." Nina didn't even blink. "You had a 4.8. That was before the live stream, before the 17 direct complaints filed this morning, before 3 former employees sent us written statements about your use of internal Code 13B. Someone gasped. The manager's eyes shot to Emma. "You gave them our codes?" Emma didn't flinch. "You gave them to me. I just stopped pretending they were normal." From the back, another staff member emerged. A young busser, maybe 19, maybe 20, wiping his hands on a towel. He stepped forward, looked at Cameron, then at Nina, and said quietly, Do you need another witness?" Nina smiled slightly. "Always." The manager barked, "You're all throwing your jobs away." The boy looked at her. "You threw away our respect a long time ago." Across the lobby, more guests began to stand. Quiet, intentional. One woman took her daughter by the hand and walked to Cameron. "I just wanted to say thank you," she said, "for showing her what real dignity looks like." Cameron nodded. "We do what we can." Another man, mid-40s, gray suit, business traveler type, added, "If you ever open your own place, I'll be your first reservation." Emma glanced over, blinking hard. Cameron caught her eye and said softly, "They're not thanking me. They're thanking you for speaking first." Nina checked her watch. "Expect contact from our legal coordination team by end of day," she said to the staff still behind the podium. Then she turned to Cameron. "We're ready if you want to initiate full escalation, but that's your call." Talia looked up at her dad. "What's escalation?" Cameron smiled. "It's the grown-up word for we're not done yet." At that exact moment, back at Ethica Core HQ in Palo Alto, a large glass conference room began filling up. Raina stood at the head of the table, already loading documents onto the central screen. Across from her sat 2 Ethics Hub engineers, a legal advisor, and a representative from the National ESG Investment Board. "We've confirmed 152 locations affected by the whiteout," Raina said. 4 major restaurant groups impacted, 23 pending license renewals halted. The ESG rep looked nervous. "You're saying this one incident could derail every property that scored below Tier 2? Raina replied calmly, "I'm saying the system worked. It just finally had teeth." Back in Newport, the last remaining guests were leaving. Some shook Cameron's hand. A few asked for a photo. One little girl handed Talia a paper crane she'd folded from a napkin. "You were brave," she whispered. Talia smiled. "You too." Then came the press. Not paparazzi, not swarming, just one clean black van pulling up outside with 2 reporters stepping out, cameraman behind them. Lanyards marked CNN. Investigative Ethics Division. The manager stepped back in a panic. "You can't let them film here." Nina turned to her. "This isn't your lobby anymore." The lead reporter approached Cameron. Her voice was gentle, but direct. "Mr. Rhodes, would you be willing to make a brief statement?" He looked at Talia. She nodded. He turned to the camera. "This morning I took my daughter to breakfast. She was denied dignity, not just service. And what you've seen here isn't about revenge. It's about a system that's gone unchecked for far too long." He paused. "Ethics is not a rating. It's a behavior. And today, this restaurant, this team, they showed the world how far we've fallen. But we also saw something else. That silence can break, and that voices, no matter how small, can echo." He reached for Talia's hand. "This isn't a takedown. It's a rebuild. And it starts with knowing who belongs." He nodded once, then turned and walked away with his daughter beside him. Inside, the restaurant was quiet again. No orders, no music, no ego. Just the faint echo of realignment. And a clipboard left open on the podium, with one sentence circled in red. Tier 0. Subject to industry-wide reform. Cameron's office wasn't flashy. Just a clean wood desk. A few family photos. One of Talia dressed as Ruth Bader Ginsburg for Halloween sat dead center. Across from him, Raina was already on her third call of the morning, pacing with that quick, quiet energy that meant a press storm was building. On speaker, 3 different stakeholders from Ethics Hub were waiting, restless, shifting in their chairs. "Mr. Rhodes," said a tense voice, "you realize that activating Whiteout Protocol has triggered ESG freeze alerts across 4 hospitality sectors. Over $230 million is being flagged for ethical reevaluation." Cameron didn't flinch. "Good. Good?" Another voice cut in. "Do you understand how many businesses will go into audit lockdown within 48 hours?" Raina spoke before he could. "And how many families have been locked out of opportunities because they were told they didn't belong in rooms they paid for?" Silence. Then, "We're going to need a formal statement for public and investor channels, preferably by noon." Cameron leaned forward. "I'll do better than that," he said. "You'll get a charter." 4 hours later, the Rhodes Dignity Charter was born. It wasn't a press release. It wasn't a campaign. It was a mandate. One that redefined what ethical compliance meant for every service-based business using the Ethics Hub system. And it started with one sentence at the top. Dignity is not earned. It is presumed. By 2:00 p.m., the full 14-page document had been submitted to 3 federal ethics partners and 6 major ESG funding consortiums. By 3:00 p.m., it was trending on LinkedIn, Medium, Twitter, and legal blogs under hashtags like #RhodesProtocol, #152Frozen, and #DignityCharter. By 4:00 p.m., 3 Fortune 500 restaurant chains had reached out asking how to voluntarily adopt the standards early. Talia was sitting on the couch in his office, head resting on his arm, listening to the noise build. She didn't say much, just watched, until Cameron walked over and handed her something, a printout. She looked down. It was the last page of the charter. Section 9, Accountability and Training Protocol. All service staff must complete implicit bias training through a certified program. Any employee demoted, harassed, or dismissed for standing up against discrimination will be protected. Witnesses of discriminatory incidents shall be offered protections, not retaliation. At the bottom, one name was already typed into the example section. Emma Wren. Verified early witness. Talia looked up. "You put her in?" Cameron nodded. "She changed the ending, so now she writes the next one." Meanwhile, across town, Emma Wren was still stunned. She had just come from a radio interview, sitting in her tiny Honda in a grocery store parking lot, when her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Cameron Rhodes, you made ripples. Let's make waves. You're now registered in the Ethics Hub Witness Circle. Someone will reach out soon. Don't stop speaking." Attached, PDF, Rhodes Dignity Charter, Draft, Momento. Emma nearly dropped the phone. Then she exhaled, slow, shaky, and whispered to herself, "It wasn't for nothing." Elsewhere, the fallout began hitting hard. Restaurant Group 9 lost 17.4 mem in pledged investment overnight. 2 franchise license applications were halted mid-review when they failed the new Tier 2 ethics filter. 4 airport hospitality lounges were stripped of their Ethics Verified tags, pending investigation. And inside those boardrooms, the same sentence kept getting repeated over and over. Who approved the Rhodes Charter? And the answer came back the same every time. He didn't ask for approval. He enforced it. Back in his office, Cameron stood by the window, watching, thinking. Raina stepped beside him, holding a fresh set of analytics. "You want the latest engagement numbers?" "No," he said. "I want to know how many people read it past page 2. She smiled. 70%, and that's unheard of. Cameron nodded once. "Then let's test how deep it can go." That night, Talia sat on the couch at home with her dad. They were eating popcorn, watching cartoons, pretending like the world hadn't just flipped. Then, out of nowhere, she asked, "Did you always know how to do this?" Cameron paused. No, but I always knew what it felt like to be the kid they thought didn't belong. Talia didn't answer right away. But when she leaned her head against his shoulder, she whispered,
I think I want to do what you do someday.
He smiled. I hope you do it better. At that moment, across the country, at a small bistro in Atlanta, a waitress named Lizette, Afro-Latina, mid-20s, quiet but watchful, handed a customer his check. When he said something slick under his breath about girls like you not lasting long, she didn't just flinch and walk away this time. She looked him in the eye and said, This restaurant is now covered under the Rhodes Charter. You might want to keep your bias to yourself. She walked back to the kitchen without waiting for an answer. And on the back wall of that kitchen, taped above the stainless steel sink, a freshly printed page was taped. The Rhodes Dignity Charter. Effective immediately, respect is not optional. Compliance is monitored. Voices matter. Retaliation is a violation. We belong. The room was carved from polished oak and cold intention. A placard in front of Cameron read, United States Senate Committee on Ethics and Public Service. Emergency session. He adjusted his cufflinks. They weren't designer, just the ones Talia had given him for Father's Day 2 years ago. One had a small chip. He kept it anyway. To his left sat Raina, quiet but locked in. To his right, Emma Wren. She looked nervous, but ready. Across the room, news cameras lined the back wall. A scrolling headline on one of the screens read, Rhodes Protocol freezes 152 locations. National hearing to address overreach or reform. The first voice came sharp. Mr. Rhodes, can you explain under what authority you unilaterally froze ESG-aligned properties without Senate oversight? Cameron didn't blink. I didn't freeze anything, he replied. I activated a mechanism already embedded in the compliance framework, one written and approved by this very committee. The senator leaned forward. You mean the whiteout protocol? Yes. And you activated it based on a restaurant incident involving your daughter? No, he said firmly. I activated it based on a systemic pattern, and my daughter was simply the latest proof. The room stilled. Emma adjusted her mic. If I may, she said, voice small but clear. I was there that morning. I wasn't part of his team. I didn't know who he was, but what I saw, what I said, was the truth. And I wasn't alone. Customers, employees, bystanders, all of them saw it too. Another senator, younger, leaned forward. Ms. Wren, are you aware of how many whistleblowers have since come forward because of your statement? Emma's voice caught. I've heard. Some of them reached out. And how many restaurant groups have retaliated against their staff since the Rhodes Charter was published? Cameron answered that one. None, he said. Because retaliation now flags you as Tier 0, and Tier 0 gets you pulled from every funding network that matters. That line hit. Not just the committee, but the audience watching online. Because for the first time, someone wasn't just talking change, he was enforcing it. One senator, older, skeptical, said, Let's be real, Mr. Rhodes. You're a billionaire. Aren't you just using your weight to strong-arm an industry you already profit from? Cameron looked him dead in the eye. I profit from systems working, not from people being silenced. The senator smirked. And what makes you qualified to write ethical law? Cameron reached for a folder, held it up. This isn't law, it's a mirror. If you don't like what you see, maybe the problem isn't the glass. Talia watched the live stream from home. She sat curled up on the couch, phone in hand, heart in her throat. Next to her, her nanny, a kind, older woman named Miss Joyce, was holding a notepad full of scribbles.
Your daddy's going to make half the room cry,
Joyce whispered. Talia smiled. That's how you know it's working. Back at the hearing, a new voice took the mic. Not a senator. A witness. A soft-spoken woman in a blue blouse stepped forward. Her nameplate read, Lizette Aranda, waitress, Atlanta Bistro. She looked straight ahead. My parents always told me to keep my head down. Smile. Don't cause trouble. That's how you survive. She paused. But when I saw the Rhodes Charter on our kitchen wall, something changed. I realized I didn't have to be silent to be safe. The committee listened, quiet. Lisette took a breath. I'm not here because I want revenge. I'm here because I want my little cousin, who just started her first job bussing tables, not to think she has to accept whatever's thrown at her just to keep a paycheck. Emma reached for a tissue. She wasn't the only one. Then came the final moment. A tall woman with gray locks and fierce eyes stepped up. Her name wasn't on the schedule. Senator Braxton. Mr. Rhodes, she said, I'm not here to challenge your ethics. I'm here to understand your vision. Cameron nodded. Ask anything. She walked to the center of the chamber. What does this charter look like? 10 years from now? He didn't hesitate. It looks like a 12-year-old black girl walking into any room, any restaurant, airport, courtroom, and never having to earn the right to be seen as human. A pause. Because by then, he continued, systems will have learned how to carry dignity before they carry policy. Silence. Then, for the first time in years, a Senate ethics hearing ended in applause. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the skyline, headlines poured in. Senate acknowledges Ethics Hub Charter, likely to influence national guidelines. Witnesses speak out, Dignity Charter gains momentum. From restaurant rejection to federal recognition, Cameron Rhodes reshapes ethics landscape. And far beyond D.C., in small towns and big cities, restaurant owners printed out the Rhodes Charter and taped it to kitchen doors. Teachers discussed it in social studies classes. Parents pointed to Cameron's hearing and told their kids, that's what standing up looks like. Taklia, now in pajamas, sat with her dad on the porch. Did they believe you? She asked. I think they saw what we stood for. She looked up at him. Are you tired? He smiled. A little. Can I say something? Always. She whispered, I hope one day people don't need a charter to do the right thing. He kissed her forehead. So do I. The first call came in at 8:12 a.m. Raina barely had time to sip her coffee when her phone buzzed with a number from Geneva. It was Aurelia Kwan, Chief Ethics Strategist at the Global Fairness Consortium. Raina, Aurelia said flatly, your guy didn't just start a conversation. He rewrote the damn index. Raina raised an eyebrow. You mean the charter? No, I mean the ripple effect. In the last 12 hours, 3 global restaurant chains had their ESG scores recalibrated using the Rhodes baseline. Their investors are panicking, she added. Privately? I think it's brilliant. Then she hung up. By 9:30, 4 more calls came in. One from the London Ethics Board, one from a Hong Kong policy lab asking for licensing rights, and one from Dakar, where a coalition of African entrepreneurs wanted to implement the Rhodes Charter into a pilot ethics accelerator program across Francophone countries. It was no longer a local reckoning. It was international alignment. Meanwhile, Cameron was exactly where no one expected him to be, sitting cross-legged on the floor of a second-grade classroom in Baltimore, reading Last Stop on Market Street to a group of wide-eyed kids. Talia sat beside him, grinning every time he changed his voice to match the characters. Afterward, their teacher, Ms. Diarra, pulled him aside. My kids saw you on TV yesterday, she said quietly. You gave them something they never get to see, someone who looks like them in power, and soft with it. Cameron smiled. Soft is underrated. Back at headquarters, the data team brought Raina a fresh heat map. She stared at the red pulses lighting up across the USA and Europe. Every time someone downloads the Rhodes Charter, the intern explained, we track the region. We're at 380,000 unique reads in 36 hours. Any industry overlap? The intern hesitated. Actually, yes. Airlines, banks, university HR departments. Even one tech giant's internal code of conduct team is citing it. Raina sat back. That's not just compliance, that's culture shift. Meanwhile, in a small restaurant in Minneapolis, an incident occurred. A server named Brandon, black, 22, soft-spoken, politely corrected a guest who made a racist joke at a nearby table. He thought he'd be punished. Instead, the manager walked out, handed the guest their check, and said, This place operates under the Rhodes Charter. We don't serve entitlement, only food. The guest stormed out. Brandon stood frozen. You okay? The manager asked. He nodded slowly. Then, yeah, I just never saw that happen. In real life. Elsewhere, in corporate towers and closed-door meetings, the tone was less sentimental. At Marquest Hospitality Group, the largest private hotel chain in the Western Hemisphere, executives argued over whether to preemptively sign on to the Rhodes Compliance Framework or challenge it. "This isn't law," barked one VP. "No," replied the CEO. "But it's public expectation now. And if we don't keep up, we won't be on the map in 5 years." A junior exec slid over a folder. Inside, side-by-side charts of stock volatility and ethics score alignment across 12 months. The higher the ethics score, the lower the stock dips. The message was clear. Do good or go broke. Cameron didn't know all the numbers yet, but he felt it. That afternoon, while reviewing messages in his inbox, he paused at one subject line. "From someone you helped without knowing." It was a letter from a young woman named Noor, a Palestinian-American who had been wrongly dismissed from a hotel internship last year after refusing to tolerate anti-Muslim comments from a manager. "I read the Rhodes Charter," Noor wrote, "and I cried. Because for the first time, someone wrote down what we've all been trying to say, that dignity isn't performance-based. Thank you for putting it into language they can't ignore." Cameron exhaled, long and quiet, then forwarded the email to Talia. That evening, the Rhodes team gathered for an informal debrief. No suits, no podiums. Just pizza, sweatpants, and real talk. Raina kicked it off. "We're hitting velocity, but we need to steer it, carefully." "Where's the risk?" someone asked. She didn't hesitate. "Co-opting. Corporations will try to slap the Rhodes name on marketing campaigns without actually implementing anything. So we set a licensing standard," another staffer said. Cameron leaned forward. "No," he said. "We build a verification engine, something automated, something ethical AI can track in real time." The room stilled. "You're serious?" Raina asked. "Deadly. If this is gonna last, we need tech as sharp as the truth it protects." Later that night, Cameron found himself standing alone in the headquarters hallway, staring at the giant mission statement wall they'd painted months ago. "We rise by restoring what was denied." He whispered it to himself once, then turned and walked back into the room. At 6:45 a.m., the sky over New York was still bruised from the night. Cameron stood at the window of his apartment, phone in one hand, coffee cooling in the other. He hadn't slept much, not because of stress. He was used to pressure, but because the data from overnight told a different kind of story. People were watching, yes. People were sharing, sure. But some people, the ones who should be speaking, were dead silent. By 7:10, Raina was already at HQ, eyes red, laptop open. She didn't bother with pleasantries when Cameron walked in. "They haven't moved," she said flatly. "Who?" She turned the screen toward him. A list of organizations scrolled by. Marquest Hospitality, Epicure Group, Cortiva Travel Holdings, Lyra Hotels International. All of them had benefited from ESG funding. All of them had discriminatory complaints pending, and none had responded to the Rhodes Charter. Cameron studied the screen. "Pull their board records," he said. "You thinking freeze?" "I'm thinking exposure. By 9 o'clock m.m. Rhodes Tier 0, pending action, lit up with 4 new flags. Raina glanced at him. "You sure about this?" Cameron didn't even blink. "I gave them a chance." Silence is a response. Meanwhile, across the country, things were changing fast. At a small hotel in Seattle, a black family checking in was greeted instead of watched. The receptionist even offered coloring books to the kids and water for their dog. It wasn't dramatic. No headlines, no hashtags. But for the mother, who'd grown up being asked if she belonged here, that one moment meant everything. And when she asked the manager why things felt so different, the young man pointed to a small framed document behind the desk. The Rhodes Charter. But not everyone was embracing it. In Atlanta, a chain restaurant with 3 open complaints posted a thinly veiled tweet. "We believe ethics should be rooted in professionalism, not in emotional reactions." It didn't take long. Within 20 minutes, a whistleblower leaked internal messages where managers referred to problem customers as the Rhodes crowd. The backlash was swift. But Cameron didn't respond. Not yet. He let the public do the talking this time. Later that day, Emma Wren stepped into a boardroom she never thought she'd see again. The one from her final interview at Epicure Group, where she was turned down after reporting a senior exec for misconduct. But this time, she wasn't there to apply. She was there as compliance counsel, invited by the new interim ethics lead who'd read her testimony in the hearing. Emma sat down, notebook in hand. Across the table, the man who dismissed her was nowhere in sight. Instead, a younger woman smiled and said, "We're not here to cover anything up. We're here to tear it down and rebuild." Emma nodded. "Then let's start with language. Words like fit and culture. Let's be honest about who those words used to exclude." At 3:14 p.m., Raina entered Cameron's office with a tight expression. "We've got a leak." Cameron looked up. "Someone from inside?" She nodded. "They released a partial list of flagged properties before verification. It's messy. Unconfirmed names are circulating." He exhaled. This was bound to happen. "What do we do?" He stood slowly. "We clean it up, with transparency, not PR." That night, Cameron went live. No graphics, no script, just him. A desk lamp, a chair. Some of you have seen names on a list that haven't been verified, and I want to say this clearly. Due process matters. This charter is not a weapon. It's a mirror. We don't shatter people. We reflect systems. He paused. But we will not allow silence to become safety for those benefiting from abuse. He looked into the camera like he was speaking to one person. You don't get to build empires on silence anymore. The next morning, something strange happened. A CEO from Corteva Travel stepped down. Not with a lawyer-crafted statement. Not with spin. He released a handwritten letter on LinkedIn. It read, "I didn't see the cracks in our foundation because I didn't have to stand on them. I was never the one slipping through. I resign, not in shame, but in awareness. May this open space be filled by someone who was never allowed to sit at the table in the first place." It went viral. Even Cameron was stunned. Talia, reading over his shoulder, whispered, "That's new." "Yeah," he said quietly. "That's accountability." Later that day, at the Ethics Hub Verification Center, Lizette Aranda, the waitress from Atlanta who testified at the Senate, walked into her new job. Her title? Head of Dignity Reporting Operations. She took a deep breath before opening her office door, where someone had placed a sticky note. "This place doesn't run on fear anymore. HR." She smiled. She wasn't here because she was broken. She was here because she never gave in. By evening, the road's protocol dashboard showed something they hadn't expected. Companies not just responding, but volunteering. 32 new restaurants and hotel groups had opted into voluntary audits. Some even invited former employees to help shape new policies. Raina stared at the monitor. "Do you think this lasts?" Cameron joined her. "If we make it about people, not power, it has to." The day it launched, nobody expected the road's Dignity Index to crash 3 servers in under 6 minutes. At exactly 9 o'clock a.m. EST, a quiet tweet went out from the official Ethics Hub account. "The Dignity Index is now live. Look up your city, your state, your neighborhood. See who's truly serving fairness." No hashtags, no promo. And yet, the internet caught fire. Within 45 minutes, the platform had over 1.3 million unique visitors. By the end of the day, the number crossed 5.6 million. People weren't just looking. They were searching, digging, questioning, flagging, celebrating, and yes, even mourning. In a dorm room at Howard University, sophomore journalism major Zion Morris scrolled through the index with tears in her eyes. Her favorite cafe in her hometown? Red score. 3 unresolved discrimination reports. But the tiny Ethiopian restaurant 3 blocks from her freshman apartment? Green. Verified charter signatory. She tweeted, "Turns out the place that never got press treated us with more dignity than the one with $1 million PR team." #Dignity Index. It went viral. Fast. Across the country, in a boardroom in Dallas, Corteva Travel Holdings scrambled. Their score? Yellow. Status: pending response, charter ignored. The CEO, just a week removed from the viral resignation, called an emergency meeting. "Who authorized silence?" she demanded. A compliance officer stammered. We We thought waiting it out would be safer. She stared him down. You thought hiding was safer than human dignity? Nobody spoke. She walked out. Back in Baltimore, Cameron sat with Talia on the edge of her bed, laptop in front of them, the screen glowing. They were looking up cities together. "Daddy, look," Talia said. "Grandma's senior home has a green rating." He smiled. "That's because Ms. Ellis never lets anyone mistreat her. She teaches the staff how to talk to folks with respect." Talia giggled. "She said she made the director rewrite the elevator signs." She probably did. Then her smile faded. What if people get mad about their scores? Cameron thought for a moment. Then they have a choice. They can get angry or get better. Meanwhile, newsrooms erupted. Segments ran on every major network. The Yelp of justice? Can you trust the Dignity Index? Anonymous ratings or verified data inside the new ethics era? On a live panel, an anchor asked, "Isn't this just another cancel culture tool dressed up in tech?" A guest shot back, "No, this isn't cancel culture. This is consequence culture. If you're building your business on people's silence, you're not losing a reputation. You're finally seeing it in a mirror." By midweek, something unexpected began happening. Law firms started downloading the index data. They used it to cross-reference discrimination lawsuits. Patterns emerged, timelines matched. Complaints long buried were resurfacing. And then, a bombshell headline hit. 14 class action suits relaunched using Rhodes Dignity Index as key evidence. Cameron read the headline from his phone, heart steady. He whispered to himself, "This wasn't revenge. This was overdue." Back at Ethics Hub HQ, Raina called an all-hands meeting. She clicked through a heat map on the big screen. "Red zones are shrinking. Not fast, but clearly." A staffer raised a hand. "Do we release the private beta dashboard for institutional scores? Universities, hospitals, courts?" Silence. Then Cameron from the back. "Yes." Another staffer. "That's going to rattle everyone." Cameron stepped forward. "So did Emmett Till. So did Anita Hill. So did Me Too. So did Trayvon. So did that maitre d' who thought my daughter didn't belong." He looked at the room. "If dignity rattles you, maybe you were never stable to begin with." Across the nation, employees walked into work differently. At a Boston hotel, a front desk agent handed a customer their key and whispered, "They finally trained us. Like, really trained us, not the fake stuff." At a Florida diner, a Latina waitress saw the Rhodes Charter sticker on the door and exhaled before starting her shift for the first time in 3 years. At a San Diego airport lounge, a disabled veteran was met with courtesy, not condescension. The manager had memorized the new Dignity Service Manual overnight. Change wasn't perfect. It wasn't everywhere, but it was beginning. Then came the moment that shook even Cameron. A major airline, one that hadn't even been directly involved in his case, requested an emergency meeting with the FAA. They didn't want to push back. They wanted to adopt the Rhodes Protocol as a pre-boarding compliance standard. Nationwide. Every gate. Every flight. Every day. Raina forwarded him the official memo. Subject: Proactive Ethics Alignment, Charter Integration. Cameron read it twice, then closed his laptop, and smiled for the first time in days. That night, Talia sat at the kitchen table, coloring in a workbook about heroes. She turned to Cameron and asked, "Daddy, am I a hero too?" He paused. "You're the reason all this happened." "But I didn't do anything. I just sat there and listened when he was mean." He knelt beside her. "And you didn't let it break you. That's what heroes do." It started with a headline no one expected. Senate Committee approves Ethics Integration Pilot. Rhodes Protocol enters federal review. Cameron stared at the screen, unmoving. His coffee had gone cold. The inbox was flooding. But for once, he didn't move. Across the table, Raina whispered, "It's happening." 6 months ago, he'd been humiliated in front of his daughter over a plate of seared salmon. Now, the very system that allowed that maitre d' to look Talia up and down like she didn't belong was about to be put on trial. By the government. And the government was asking him for the blueprint. By 9:30 a.m., he was walking through the marble hallways of Capitol Hill, escorted by 2 interns and a communications officer from the Senate Ethics Oversight Committee. "You okay?" Raina asked, holding her notepad tight as they passed a row of reporters. Cameron nodded. I'm not nervous about testifying. Then what? I'm nervous about how little they know. Inside the chamber, every seat was filled. Representatives from 12 federal agencies were present. FAA, Department of Transportation, HUD, even Education. A sign above the hearing room door read, Emergency Session, Ethics Infrastructure in Public-Facing Institutions. When Cameron was called to the table, he paused before speaking. Thank you for allowing me to testify. I didn't come here as a CEO today. I came as a father. He clicked the remote. The screen behind him flickered on. A photo of Talia appeared, the one from that night. Her head turned away, her dress wrinkled, her face hurt but quiet. She's the reason I started building the Rhodes Protocol, not because I wanted to punish anyone, but because I wanted to make sure no child, no family, is ever made to feel disposable again. Over the next 3 hours, Cameron walked the committee through the data. 329 hospitality sites audited. 58% had never conducted internal bias training. 24% had at least one unresolved civil rights complaint. Less than 12% had active compliance mechanisms for employee behavior outside surveillance footage. The senators looked stunned. This is happening everywhere? One asked. Everywhere dignity isn't protected by design, Cameron replied. After the session ended, a woman in a navy skirt suit approached him in the hallway. She looked around, made sure no cameras were near.
I just wanted to say thank you,
she said softly. My son uses a wheelchair, and what you're doing, I wish someone had done it 10 years ago. Cameron's voice caught in his throat. Thank you for telling me. That night, Talia fell asleep on the couch, wrapped in one of Cameron's old college sweatshirts, the news still playing in the background. He stood by the window again, like he had on the first day after the restaurant. Only now, the skyline looked different. It felt less like resistance, more like readiness. 2 weeks later, a historic joint announcement was made. The FAA, HUD, and DOT will begin adopting the Rhodes Protocol as a baseline ethics assessment in federal service contracts. Translation? If you wanted to build, serve, or fly under federal partnership, you had to prove your dignity metrics were active and verifiable. And then came the biggest twist of all. A coalition of 11 Fortune 500 companies, none of whom had been publicly flagged, voluntarily signed the expanded Rhodes Charter. Their internal statement read, "We no longer see ethics as a shield against scandal. We see it as a structure worth building into our DNA." Cameron read it, stunned. These weren't companies reacting to shame. They were acting proactively. It wasn't fear, it was respect. The public momentum was impossible to ignore. TikTok creators broke it down in explainer videos. School districts requested copies of the charter. Even Netflix requested rights to option a docuseries. But Cameron refused the offers, for now. This isn't entertainment, he told his team. It's infrastructure. Raina nodded. But it's also a movement, and movements grow. Meanwhile, Talia stood in front of her 4th grade class holding a poster board that read, "Dignity is not extra." She had drawn a restaurant table with one empty seat, and under it, "When you exclude someone, the table is never full." Her teacher posted it online. Within 48 hours, it had 800,000 likes. The caption? Cameron Rhodes' daughter speaks louder than any CEO. Then came one last surprise. The maitre d' from that night, the man who had mocked Cameron, dismissed Talia and threw away his card, sent a letter. No return address, just a white envelope on the front desk of Ethics Hub HQ. Inside was a simple handwritten note. "You don't have to forgive me, but your daughter made me see something I refused to acknowledge in myself. I left the industry. I work at a community center now. We're using the charter as a training tool. I hope that means something." Cameron read the note twice. He didn't say a word, just handed it to Raina, then walked to the large glass wall overlooking the city. For the first time since that humiliating night, he closed his eyes and breathed. Not every fight needed a press release. Not every win came with applause. Sometimes, victory showed up in a crumpled envelope, a little girl's poster, a mother's whisper in a hallway. This wasn't the end of the story, but it was the beginning of something no one could silence again. 6 months later, the Dignity Accord was no longer just a corporate document. It was a national standard. It lived in break rooms, training manuals, school policies, and even airport gates. But for Cameron Rhodes, it still lived most clearly in the quiet. The quiet of walking into a restaurant with his daughter and not being watched like a threat. The quiet of knowing his name wasn't attached to scandal, but to structure. One spring morning, Cameron sat in a circle of folding chairs inside the cafeteria of a public high school in Newark, New Jersey. The room was packed with students, teachers, cafeteria workers, even janitors. They were there to finalize something that started with one email. "Mr. Rhodes, we want to be the first school in New Jersey to adopt the charter. Can you help us?" He didn't just help. He showed up. A sophomore named Malik stood up, holding a clipboard in one hand, voice shaking. "We don't want to just punish racism or bullying after it happens. We want to prevent it. We want to see it coming." There were nods around the circle. A cafeteria worker spoke next. "I've been called names, ignored, talked over, but I never quit. I stayed because I wanted to feed these kids, but it's hard when no one sees you." Cameron listened, really listened. Then he handed Malik a single sheet of paper. Across the top, community-based dignity model, pilot 001, Newark High. They had done it, together. Meanwhile, in Washington, D.C., a reporter was preparing a segment. The title? From Quiet Power to National Reform, The Rise of the Rhodes Accord. She spent weeks interviewing workers, students, activists, and yes, even critics. One hotel manager said, "Look, I hated this thing at first, but we lost 3 weddings to a competitor who did adopt it, so we had to change. And I'll admit now, our turnovers dropped 40%. Across the country, state legislatures began integrating the charter into policy. Oregon passed a bill requiring Rhodes Protocol certification for all state-funded housing programs. Illinois followed, mandating charter-based training for public school staff. And in Georgia, after a highly publicized case of a pregnant woman being mistreated in a clinic, a senator introduced the Patient Dignity and Care Act, co-written with Ethics Hub. Cameron didn't celebrate with press tours. He didn't give speeches. He just opened his inbox each morning and read the quiet victories. But there was one call he couldn't ignore. It came from the White House Office of Public Engagement. "We'd like you to be part of a roundtable discussion," the voice said, "on ethics in modern American institutions." Cameron hesitated. "I don't need a medal." The aide chuckled. "We're not offering a medal. We're offering a seat." 1 week later, he found himself sitting next to 4 other panelists in a historic room once used by Eleanor Roosevelt. To his left, a healthcare reformer. To his right, a civil rights attorney. Across the table, a disabled veteran and a young Latina labor organizer from Texas. The moderator leaned in. "What unites all of you, despite your fields, is that you built systems to protect dignity before it was popular to do so. What made you keep going?" Cameron spoke last. He glanced at the others, then down at the ring on his finger, his late wife's initials engraved inside. Then he said, softly, "Because I've seen what happens when systems are built without it." The next day, Talia ran up to him in the kitchen, holding a permission slip. "Can I go to the museum with my class next week?" Cameron scanned it. "Of course. You'll need a good jacket. It'll be chilly." She leaned against him. "It's the museum where they have the charter printed on the wall now, in the new Civic Justice exhibit." He paused. "They put it on the wall?" "Yeah, the big one, with your name under it." Cameron chuckled, eyes soft. "Guess I can't be invisible anymore." At the end of the school year, he was invited to give one final guest talk. This time not to politicians, not to lawyers, but to a group of 11th grade students in Atlanta. No microphones, no cameras, just folding chairs and open notebooks. A student raised her hand. "Mr. Rhodes, do you think people really change?" He smiled. "I don't think they always do," he said honestly. "But I think systems force choices, and when dignity becomes easier than cruelty, change happens." Another hand. "What made you start all this?" He paused. "A maitre d' who thought my daughter didn't deserve a seat." That night, back at home, Talia was curled up reading a book on the couch. "Daddy," she said without looking up, "when you get old, will I run Ethics Hub?" Cameron laughed. "That's not how retirement works, sweetheart." She looked up, serious now. "But I want to keep it going, for kids like me, who are quiet, who get looked at like they're in the wrong place. He sat beside her. Then I guess I better start training you. And outside, across 100 cities, a quiet revolution kept unfolding. A hotel desk clerk greeted a black couple with eye contact and warmth. Not because he feared complaint, but because it had become the standard. A server apologized to an elderly guest for a mistake, and meant it. A flight attendant saw a teen girl in first class and said, "Welcome aboard," instead of asking for ID. Because somewhere along the way, dignity stopped being a courtesy and started being policy. It was just a Tuesday. Nothing flashy. No interviews. No headlines. But to Cameron Rhodes, this Tuesday meant everything. Because today, for the first time in a year, he and Talia were returning to the place where it all began. The restaurant. Not to argue, not to demand, but because it had new ownership, new staff, new code of ethics, and it had requested a quiet meeting with the man whose charter now hung behind the host stand, framed in gold. Talia tugged on his sleeve as they stepped out of the car. "Are you nervous?" Cameron looked down at her and smiled. "A little," she smiled back. "I'm not." Inside, everything looked different. The lighting was softer, the tone warmer. The hostess, young, brown-skinned, with locks like Talia's, greeted them with a genuine smile. "Mr. Rhodes, Miss Talia, thank you for coming. Your table is ready." They were led to the same corner booth, but this time, there were no stairs, no tension, just space and welcome. A man in a gray suit approached. Mid-50s, white, clearly nervous. "Mr. Rhodes, I'm Ethan Kingsley, the new general manager." Cameron stood, shook his hand. "Thanks for having us." Ethan nodded. "Actually, thank you. We rebuilt this place using the charter, trained every single employee with it. We even scrapped our old vendor policy to match the ethics criteria." Cameron raised an eyebrow. "That's a serious commitment." "We had to," Ethan said. "The story, the one about you and your daughter, it became more than a wake-up call. It became our mirror." Over lunch, Talia laughed more than she ate. The waiter was kind. The food was perfect. And halfway through the meal, the hostess brought over a little surprise. A chocolate cupcake with "Welcome Back" piped in soft gold icing. Talia grinned. "They got the frosting right this time." Cameron chuckled. Progress. After the meal, as they stood to leave, Ethan gestured toward the charter frame near the front. "We don't just keep it there to impress people," he said. "We've built our entire daily checklist around it. Morning briefs, mid-shift evaluations, guest feedback. Every single part connects back to that." Cameron studied the frame. His name was at the bottom, yes. But what mattered more was what stood above it. Dignity is the baseline, not the bonus. Outside, the afternoon sun was warm. Cameron and Talia walked side by side, unhurried. "You think they meant it?" she asked. Cameron glanced back at the building. "I do." Back home, Cameron settled into his chair by the window, the same window he had once stood at, fists clenched, the night everything went wrong. But tonight, his hands were open, resting. He watched as Talia danced around the living room, spinning to music only she could hear. She wasn't the same little girl from that night, and he wasn't the same man. They were both restored. Across the city and across the country, other restorations were happening. A hotel changed its booking process to remove name-based bias. A tech company replaced AI resume filters with a human-first review system. A school district implemented a peer-led dignity committee modeled after Talia's poster, not because they had to, but because the standard had shifted. In a world that often forgets, someone remembered. In a world that often erases, someone rewrote. And in a world that once told a black father and his daughter they didn't belong, they built the table themselves, then left the door wide open. Now we want to hear from you. Has there ever been a moment when someone looked at you or someone you love like you didn't belong? Drop it in the comments. We're reading every story. And if you felt something today, smash that like button, share this with someone who needs to hear it, and tell us where you're watching from. Because at Telltales, we don't just tell stories. We build tables where everyone has a seat.